Hello and welcome to episode 16 of this Blender and Unity crash course. I just wanted to mention a few things before we open up Unity. So if you've got your project here and you think this is super messy, if you notice with the LOD system, when we selected these and exported them, whatever we name that file becomes the parent object for us in Unity. So I don't tend to do it if I don't need to, but if you think this is a little crazy, if you notice we can just create an empty object, so say Shift-A, you can go to empty, and I guess decide how it's displayed. Arrows, fine, I guess. And of course, it'll place a new object at your 3D cursor, something to note. So let's go cursor to world origin. Let's go Shift S, selected to cursor key. Whoop. There we go. Okay. And what you can do now is you can parent all of these to this empty and rename this empty whatever you want. Or rename this broken crate if you wanted to, and parent all of these to it. So, like I said, when you export multiple objects as a single FBX file, Unity will create a parent for you. So we're okay there. But if you want to do that, that's how you do that. So if you notice in our coin asset, once we parented it to the armature, you just click this little drop-down arrow, and it's a little bit cleaner in your hierarchy that you can, like say you had all those broken cubes underneath a parent, that you could just close the drop-down arrow and then only see your LODs, right? So that's it, in case you want that. One other thing I want to mention before we start that broken crate is that I guess when we re-imported our crate, it did reset the LODs camera settings, so I guess we can fix these. So as long as you have this prefab selected, you can go down here to overrides, and if you change anything on a certain prefab that you went, oh crap, I wanted to change that to all of them, just click apply all, and it'll change that to everything. So now when I drag out this crate asset, the prefab, it's going to have the LODs already set where we put them. Alright, so let's go to our models folder. That's where we brought in our blend file the first time. Let's go to that folder where we exported the FBX file, models. Let's take our broken crate asset, drag that in, okay, that'll load up. Let's take our coin asset and drag that in as well. Cool. So with the broken crate, let's have a look at that first. So before we do this, the first thing I want you guys to do is go to your assets, right-click, create a folder called scripts. Now don't worry about coding right now, I'm not going to explain much. What I'm going to do here is just save a lot of people out there from overheating their graphics card. So just go right-click, create, C# script. Don't worry about understanding this, just follow me right here. I'm going to call this frame rate manager. I'm going to capitalize frame rate and manager. Enter. Okay, let that compile. Every time you add a script, it needs to load for a second. Get a preview of your text document right here. You double click and open this up. This is going to open another program called Visual Studio if you're on Windows, and Mono Develop if you're on Mac. They're basically the same thing. In my opinion, Visual Studio is a little bit nicer. It just has like some a nicer view, layout, and it's got some extra tools that'll help you out. But the coding language and everything we're going to type is exactly the same. So you're going to double click that script. It's going to open this up. All you want to do is type in application with a capital A under the start right here, right between these two parentheses. And I'll explain much more about coding in a little bit. I'm going to say application with a capital A dot target frame rate, spelt just like that. And if you're in Visual Studio, it will definitely give you this little drop down. It might even Mono Develop. So lowercase t on target, capital F on frame, capital R on rate, equals 60. Now you can change this to 60 or 30. What this is your FPS of your game. Okay, we're going to modify the script later to actually be a little bit cleaner and have a little bit more utility, so we can change the frame rate on the fly. But for right now, just change this to either 60 or 30, whatever you think is better for your monitor. Okay, and then you want to finish that line with a semicolon, with the comma, with the period above it. Okay, then hit Control S, and you will save. You can also go up here, File, Save All. It will be just fine. Okay, you can close this for now. All right, and it's going to load up and compile because we changed the script, right? Now you want to right-click, create an empty right here. We're going to name this Game with a capital G, Manager with a capital M. Okay, and just drag this script right on over here as if it's a component. Now, the other thing you can do is say Add Component. Click this right here, just as we can add colliders and stuff like that by typing here. We can type in the name of our script. So I'll type in frame rate, and it'll be appearing right there. So click that and make sure it has that script attached to it. Like I said, you can also click and drag, and it'll just add it on like that. Okay, so make sure you have that, and that way when we click the play button to play our game and test it out, your graphics card won't be running at 1,000 or 2,000 frames a second and just you know, overwork itself. So that's the only reason we did that. Don't worry about understanding the code right now. We'll explain that a lot more in depth later. All right, so we can leave this this crate here for now. That's fine. Let's go into models, and let's drag in our broken crate now. Okay, this still gives us a parent right here. Broken crate asset will be named the FBX file, and if we drop this down, we see all our broken pieces. As mentioned before, we can actually edit multiple at the same time, so long as they have the same components. So let's drag in our material first, right? Drag that in right there. That'll affect all of them. Perfect. Next, I think we want to add our box colliders to these. So select all of them. Click the top one, hold shift. Click the bottom one. Don't select the parent. That'll have different components, and if we do select it, we won't be able to edit things. There you go. So let's click Add Component. Let's type in Collider. Let's say Box Collider. Now you're going to notice on the diagonal ones, because they're diagonal objects, even in Blender, the Box Collider is going to try and do this, right? Just want to select all the diagonals. Okay. One on top. Everything else should be perfectly fine. So let's just select the diagonal pieces. We don't have one on the bottom. That's perfect. So let's right-click here and remove this component. Let's add a new component, the Mesh Collider. Okay, now initially, this is just going to be the exact same shape as the mesh itself. We don't really need to do that. Like on these jagged pieces, we don't need that to really be affected by physics collision and stuff like that. So let's click Convex. And what that's going to do is it's going to trace around basically the perimeter of the whole thing without making little gaps and stuff like this. And it's going to have a maximum of 256 triangles. So that's the most it's ever going to do. So you don't, this is to super optimize something basically. So if you have like a complicated mesh and you click Convex, like a tree or something like that, it's going to make it really weird. If it only has if it can only go up as far as 256 triangles, right? There's only so much that amount of geometry can do. So just to keep that in mind. But for simple stuff like this, it really fixes things. Perfect. We need to add physics first. So let's click this one here, all the way to the bottom. Now let's add to all of them, let's add a rigid body. Now you can see we can't edit the colliders because there are mesh colliders and box colliders now. So you would have to select individually the diagonal pieces and then the square pieces. So let's type in rigid body. And this is just a generic form of physics. It's pretty good, just with the settings that it has right away. So we're probably going to leave this all alone for now. So just add a rigid body, and what this is going to do is give it gravity, if we have a use gravity tick there. If you click is kinematic, it will basically never move, and we don't want that. So let's say use gravity, just leave the settings the way it is. Basically this is ready to fall apart now. So if we just take our camera and make sure it's looking at that, go to our game view, right? It's kind of looking at it, but let's get a little bit closer. Let's double click our main camera. And just take these arrows and move closer in here. You can even position the camera however you like. Let's go to this transform option again. That's the best one. Go to our directional light right here. And change its X rotation, right? You see what goes on there. There's probably some mixed baking going on. Whoops, we're in our game view. So when you're in your game view, you're looking through the lens of your game camera right here. So you won't be able to actually select things, right? You need to go to your scene view to do stuff like that. You'll still be able to see things in the inspector, so bear that in mind. We could change our position by doing this, right? But you can't select things within the viewport. Okay, and it's gonna probably bake because of your default settings, and we'll look at the lighting settings later. So just let it do its thing. Let it process as we change the light here. That's okay. All right, so now we can click play. You can click this little button, maximize on play. If you do have that checked, it'll just maximize the screen. Obviously, it'll still leave your a little border around with this play pause. So that's just how you enable and enable the full screen there in our test view. So let's click play. Okay, and right away you see what happens. So that might actually be a lot. Oh, can we see we have some, yeah, that could be some objects that we mirrored. So we might need to go into our object again and just recalculate all the normals. So let's first go into Blender and let's fix all of our normals, because we go in here. Let's check these off again. Some of them are, the normals are flipped, right? We can see the inside of this particular board, but we can't see the outside. So let's go into Blender. Okay, select all these. Press A to select everything in edit mode. Hold shift, press N. That's our recalculate normal. So that should fix everything about that. Now we can just have all of these selected, go to File, Export, FBX. Instead of going to our original desktop Crash Course files spot, we can go into the actual game project folder, broken crate asset, selected objects, apply transform. Okay. That should fix all of the normals for us. And there we are. Okay, we can just delete this, dragging it again, right? Nothing wrong with it. Select all of these, materials, back on. We're going to go add component. We'll add the rigid body first this time, since they all have it. We're going to go box collider. Alright, now we need to select all of the diagonals. 1, 2. Okay, we'll remove the box collider. Type in mesh, and we'll get the collider at the top there. And we'll tick convex. Okay, we're back to where we were. Let's save. Okay, and there we have it.